Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family, and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the Podcast of Power, it's not the only show, but the best show that talks about the Lord of the Rings of Power. Oh, those rings that we have heard such marvelous things about. We are talking about the 4th episode of the 1st season. We're talking about the Great Wave. Surf's up, dude!
Yeah! Riding that great dwarven wave. My name is Doogie Elrond.
Is it the dwarves that cause the big wave?
The wave that we see in this episode?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
He who receives the wave is he who created the wave, as the Numenorians are soon to learn. I was hoping you would introduce me as Doogie Elrond, because that is really what Elrond looks like with that haircut. He looks like Doogie Howser.
I can see that, yeah. Oh, by the way, this is Chris Stachiw. I'm Mike White, so it's good to talk with you again.
Yeah, is it? Yes,
I think so.
Yeah, this show's good. Yes, this show is good. So it is good to talk. Judging by the online discourse, though, you would think that we're watching, I guess, state-sanctioned snuff films.
We are watching someone that has dug up J.R.R. Tolkien's corpse and just is having a skull fucker too.
I guess so.
Wow.
The Lord of the Rings subreddit and the LOTR meme subreddit was somewhere that I used to enjoy going to.
It was somewhere I used to like to go. Yeah.
Not so much anymore. But hey, you know what? At least we got a title for this episode. At least it's not episode 1.4 or whatever it was being billed as before they released the title the day the episode came out.
Yeah. I don't know why the secrecy, but okay. If that's how you're going to run it, that's cool. We didn't used to know what the episode titles were. And there's a lot of shows where you watch the whole show and you never know that there even is an episode.
Yeah,
title.
Yeah, that's fair. So this episode is all about Numenor and the dwarves. It's interesting. This show really
I guess forget about the orcs too.
Right, right. The orcs they should just have their own show. But
Adar and the orcs.
Right. I would watch that show, but we don't get any of the Harfoots. So it's weird. Like the Harfoots aren't in every episode. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's like every other episode, it seems.
Well, it's like Elrond. I don't think Elrond was in last week's episode.
Yeah, no, I don't think he was either. No, we didn't even check in with the dwarves last week.
Yeah, so you're getting 3 stories right now, or 3 of the 4 storylines are going on.
Yeah. So we have, Elrond, then we have Theo, son of the woman who loves the elf who's captured out in the wilds by the elf father or the orc father, I guess. And then, we have the entire Numenor story with Galadriel. So what did you think of this week's episode, Mike?
Well, we're getting to the point where Andrea is walking out of these episodes and not asking me to pause because she's completely confused because of the cross-cutting. I like it, and I like where we went, and I like where we were taking this story. So I had a good time, and I was glad that we don't know a whole lot about Adar after, makes his appearance. Last week was named after him, even though he was just shown in a very blurry image. But I like that we have the elf captain returning to Bronwyn, and we're getting those 2 storylines converging a little bit more. That was nice, and very curious to see where the Galadriel story goes. And I really like seeing Durin and Elrond hanging out together. It gives me a lot of Legolas Gimli vibes, so I'm enjoying that quite a bit.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing myself this episode. It's like there's a lot of the interplay between Elrond and Durin, I would say, is the focus of the episode. That's the A plot, and then the B plot is what's going on in Numenor, and then the C plot is everything that's happening in the Southlands with Bronwyn's son, who still... There are some weird things now happening in this show. So not weird things, but again, we don't know what was happening in the world at this time per Tolkien's text. So this is just kind of Sauron is rising to power. So what does that mean for the world and the people in the world? Because they're obviously, just like with Morgoth, there were sympathizers for Morgoth. So, and they were human. So there are undoubtedly going to be Sauron sympathizers as well, who are more than likely human. And we're kind of seeing that already, which is interesting because I didn't expect it to be in the 4th episode of this show.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does really feel like the elves were an occupying force. And so after a while, the humans, the men, were just really hating on the elves, even though the elves were ostensibly keeping them safe, though apparently not doing that great of a job since we've had the rise of the orcs again. But they're there to protect the humans, and the humans are just like, a lot of them don't like that they're there. They don't like their presence. So it feels very, Germany 1920s and 30s kind of thing to me.
Yeah, well, and that's clearly where Tolkien was drawing inspiration from with his original source material text. So, it's interesting. This is really a part of the Lord of the Rings world that we've never seen. We've never seen the reactions to the elves be disgust and abject, just like anger and hatred towards them. We haven't seen that. And now that we're seeing it in this show, it's interesting because, again, like my perception of the elves at the time of the Lord of the Rings story is, they're leaving the world of their own choice, and they're getting the hell out of Dodge as soon as they can because they refuse to help, because they've already helped 2 other times, or 3 other times even. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting story direction because, again, we haven't seen anything like this in the Lord of the Rings world yet.
Mm-hmm. This whole thing of them setting up that Sauron has many names, I mean, it almost feels like we're starting to do this who is going to be the Dark Lord type of thing. Like, will it be Theo? Is it Adar? Is it this person? Have we not seen them yet? It's just like kind of a weird way that they're going with this. And I hope that they don't start playing this game where it's like, watching The Mentalist, and it's like, oh, is he Red John? Is he Red John? And it's like, no, enough. Red John's probably going to be somebody we've never even seen before.
Well, and that's the thing that we've kind of talked about already with this show is how are they going to introduce real villains? Because they've introduced Adar already, but he let the elf go to tell him, hey, like, go make a deal with your people, because otherwise, like, go make a deal with your people, Arondir. Otherwise, like, we're coming to get you. And like, or surrender the Southlands or else. Mm-hmm. And then supposedly the orcs that he has have found something. Again, we don't know what, which is, again, exciting for this show because, yeah, there is a lot of, I think we've gotten to the point with this episode where there is a lot of familiarity with what's going on. Mm-hmm. And at this point, it's like, oh, yeah, here's Galadriel and the Palantir and Numenor and they finally mentioned Sauron and here's essentially like a Morgul blade. Like, we're getting to the point where they're introducing a lot of things that even the most casual viewer might recognize from the original series. But what's weird about this episode is it feels like, it is obviously the midway of the season. This is we're already halfway done with the first season of the show, which is crazy, but it really feels like a big moment in the show that they have, the Numenorians going, we are going to help the men of the Southlands. Uh-huh. And it's a big moment. I'm surprised it's in the 4th episode of the show because the Numenor stuff, I'm not going to lie to you, the Numenor stuff is probably my least interesting. It's so kind of muddy and
it was getting real old real fast.
Castle intrigue, it is not.
Yeah, I really just did not need all this. And we get to see the king, but he doesn't even get to say a word.
Right. Yeah. Well, we get his, the Queen Regent tells this story about how he helped the elves, and because he helped the elves, the people of Numenor didn't appreciate that. And so they brought her in to be the true leader of Numenor, but they have the Palantir, and the Palantir shows how Numenor gets destroyed. Numenor gets destroyed, sunk back into the ocean. And you get, that is what's going to happen. The visions are real. They say as much multiple times in the show, like these visions are going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But I'm just kind of surprised that they're setting this up so early, because this feels like a storyline that wouldn't be taking place in this show until the 2nd or 3rd season. And they're like 4th episode of the 1st season. They're already like, Numenor is going to be destroyed. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It makes me question just how big the scope of this show is.
Right. Likewise.
If this is the midway through the 1st season, okay, great. Is it going to be the last episode of the 1st season? Will it be like the 7th? We've only have 4 more to go.
Right.
And it's so interesting that Numenor is basically a stand-in right now for Atlantis, the way that we're playing this idyllic society. They're so much more advanced than any of the humans that are over on the mainland, and they're going to get wiped off of the earth.
Yeah. And now we know that as an audience member. Again, before it was, if you knew the source material, that's where it was going. But now you've seen it as an audience member, so you're essentially going to see that shot. Maybe not that exact same shot, but Numenor is going to be destroyed. Again, that's not really a spoiler. That's just where the show's clearly already made its case for going. And I think that's also the other issue with the Numenor storyline. It's the fact that they've already mentioned, it's going to be destroyed to the audience, and not just if you're an audience member, where this is going. Like with what's going on with the dwarves. They don't say Balrog, but if that's what's going on. That's what's happening. That's what King is attempting to prevent is
right.
That them digging too deep for all of the mithril. But they don't say like, oh, well, if we dig too deep, we're going to find a Balrog. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't need the show to be that over the head with stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad that, right now they're not telegraphing who Isildur is and where he's going to be going in his life. And his stuff was fairly interesting. It's okay, though I felt like Boatmaster really overreacted.
Yeah. Well, it's like you ruined everything and you brought shame upon your family, and it's like,
because you didn't catch a rope. I'm sorry.
All of that. Like,
yeah. there was a rope mishap in the last episode, and you didn't say, "This is the last time, Isildur."
Yeah. I didn't. Again, the stuff in Numenor, I think, I don't know. I don't want to say it's been the weakest stuff so far in the show.
It has.
I think it has been, though.
Yeah. I
actually think everything with Galadriel's been, it's not as interesting as I would have hoped, given where they started out.
Right. The first episode when she was killing that, snow troll and all that, I was like, okay, this is really cool.
Yeah.
But right now she's kind of a damsel in distress. She's not the master of her own fate, and she has to rely on the decisions of others right now and their mercy before she can actually start to act again. I'm waiting for her to get back to the mainland.
Right. Me too. It's like this, it kind of reminds me a lot of Game of Thrones, like season 2 through 6, with Daenerys had her doing her own thing in another place for like 3 or 4 seasons.
Really?
Yeah. That show has a multitude of problems, and taking one of the main characters and keeping her separate from the main show's cast for almost all of the show is but one of them. Wow. But I was genuinely concerned, and still kind of am, that they're treating Galadriel's character in that same way, where it's like, we're going to keep her away from all the big stuff until it's like, now we're not going to keep her away from the big stuff. We'll keep her away from the buildup up to the big stuff. But then when the big stuff happens, she will be the most important part of it. It's like, I don't like that storytelling, because right now her story is not interesting. Like you said, she's not given she's not given an ability to make decisions for herself. None. And again, we have, the character of Pharazôn, who plays a rather big part later in the story, the character of Muriel, and then the character of Elendil are kind of all there with their own machinations, but it's just not particularly interesting. We're not given enough, frankly, what the real problem is, we're not given enough information about any of those other kind of castle characters like Muriel, like Pharazôn. I mean, we know who Elendil is, we know who Isildur is, but that's because they're connected to one another. Outside of that, it's like, I don't know. Pharazôn just shows up this episode. Like, he's going to be a huge part of this story, but they're just like, oh, and here he is. Like, we're supposed to know. Again, it's this weird thing where the show does go, well, the story, so we're not going to be like, oh, here's Pharazôn, we'll tell you all about him. But at the same time, like, you haven't told us essentially anything. And for people who don't have any experience with the source material, which you have to assume some of these people who are watching the show are going to just be less than even casual fans, they're just watching it to watch it, you need to explain who that character is to them, at least more so than what they did here, which is not really do anything.
Yeah, Pharazôn is the guy with the big beard, right?
Yeah, and the
great big bushy beard.
And the great hair, too.
Yeah, he was in the very first time that we came to that court. We saw him, because I kept wondering, who is this guy and what is he in relation to the queen? Because he looks old enough to be her father. I know he's not, but I'm just like, who is this? And then I also kept wondering, is that Michael Sheen? Is that the guy's name from like Good Omens?
From Good Omens? No, it's not, but it looks like him.
Right?
Yeah, it does look like him.
Tristan Gravale or something is his name. But yeah, not Michael Sheen, though. I really was like, oh, here's another familiar face.
Yeah. Yeah, he plays a really big part in the downfall of Numenor, but it's kind of weird because, he's an important character, obviously, to the whole kind of high intrigue of what's going on in Numenor with the queen regent and the king who saw the future and paid for it. It's interesting. I don't know. I appreciate what they're doing by having Galadriel go to Numenor and it be like, look, she's an elf out of place in a place where elves are not welcome. But again, isn't that a little on the nose? Like, isn't it? Why do we need to see another scene of a bunch of Numenorians screaming about how terrible elves are? Like, I get it. Like, I think the audience gets it at this point, because almost all of the interactions Galadriel has had with anyone at Numenor have been, you're an elf. You're terrible because you're an elf. And it's like, oh, so is there nothing else to this character's interactions with these people here? Like, why does she care? Like, why do they care? Why does she care that they care? If I were her, I'd just be like, I'm out of here. Like, whatever. But it's weird. The way that they're writing the characters in Numenor, there's like this separation between the people that she's interacting with and then like everybody else. And that's a little realistic, I guess, given that everyone she's interacting with are these like high noble people. But yeah, I could do without these scenes of, people, common folks screaming in the streets about how terrible elves are. It's like, this is a little on the nose show.
Yeah. When that guy was out there preaching, I was like, oh.
Do I need to see this in Lord of the Rings? Like, really?
Yeah. It is tough because I like the actress that plays Galadriel, and I would like Elendil, the father.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else seems to have a lot of charisma. They're just not capturing me as far as like, oh, I want to know more about her. Wow, she seems really interesting. Or him, he seems great. It's like they're just kind of there. Like, to your point, they're underwritten. They're not using them very well at all right now.
Right.
And maybe suddenly they'll develop personalities 2 episodes down the line.
Well, that's the question that I have is like, if you're not doing it now, are you going to do it when Pharazôn is a large part of this story? Because he will become a very large part of this story. Maybe not very soon, but at some point. Mm-hmm. And again, to your point, it's like, well, you can't build him up then.
Right.
So could you do it now? Like, you're going to spend time having the scene with him out and about amongst the people, saying, kind of speaking his piece. But again, like, why would anyone listen to him is the question.
Right.
It's not been established why he's important. He just looks important. And show don't tell is fine, but you got to tell us something. But then we get to the stuff with the elves and the dwarves, and then it kind of redeems almost everything else. Yeah.
That's super entertaining. And I'm very intrigued. The whole thing with Peter Mullen, where Durin the elder is talking with Durin the younger. I'm just like, ooh, what's going on here? This is good. And then I was really glad you were right on the money, of course, with the mithril. And they did have that nice little like, oh, I think in your tongue it'd be something like this. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to really hit.
They're hitting the nail really on the head, baby.
Boom.
No, I believe it's pronounced mithril. Trademark. Tolkien family estate.
I was glad we had more of Durin's wife, who I think we both find to be very lovely.
Oh, yeah.
But the scenes of Elrond sneaking around the caves, I was just like, this feels a little Alec Guinness and the Death Star, but also, how's this elf just wandering around these caves with nobody saying, hey, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah. Look. Oh, Jesus. As much as I like Elrond, which I do like Elrond a lot, Robert Aramayo, the look of him, he looks like a dweeb. He looks like a dork. He looks like Doogie Howser. Like, his haircut makes him look like Doogie Howser. But he's real, like, he has charisma that the rest of the show in parts lacks. Like, most of everything in Numenor lacks a charismatic lead other than Morfydd Clark, who's, I have a tempest inside me. Okay. Again, those lines are cool if they're given an opportunity to be in a scene that matters. Right. But it's like they're giving a lot of it to Elrond still, like, really. Again, like, he even gets this fantastic monologue where he's, Durin is complaining about his father stopping the mining of mithril. Good idea. And Durin comes in and he's like, well, I never want to have to talk to him again. He's such an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And Elrond just goes, dresses him down. He's like, hey, I wish I had 1 minute to talk to my father ever again, let alone him still being alive like yours is. And that whole monologue is really great.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just shows, again, it shows what happens when the show is operating on all cylinders. It really is a well-written show when it's well written. Yeah.
When it's good, it's great.
Yeah.
And when it's meh, it's really not good.
Yeah. This episode is written by J.D. Payne, Patrick McKay, and Stephanie Folsom. And they wrote, everybody but Stephanie Folsom wrote the first episode, and then Jennifer Hutchison wrote the second, and then another group of people wrote the third. This is now, in my opinion, the weakest episode of the 4 so far. And I think it really feels like it does kind of feel like too many people pulling in too many directions. We got to have this. It's like that stuff with Theo and Sauron feels real tacked on. Mm-hmm. Like, as much as I appreciate it and I'm interested to see where it's going, it's like all of a sudden there's a 5th faction that's being introduced, the Humans for Sauron faction.
Yes. the what was it? The people for the cheetahs eating my face party.
yeah. The leopards ate my face party for sure.
Right.
I mean that's again. That's where I assume that story is going with the humans and Sauron, is they're about to learn real quick why you don't ally yourself with the Dark Lord. But
right.
I as much as I appreciate that scene, once again, we get to see the orcs being real scary in the scene with Theo and his friend going to steal food back. And then, of course, Theo has to push the issue and go get more food. I appreciated that scene for the cinematography, but it falls into this camp of, and again, Game of Thrones kind of ruined this for me. These shows, these like high fantasy shows, they can't do evening scenes worth of shit, like at all. And I don't get it, because it's like, okay, so we have to admit that there's no way to light these scenes other than like torches and campfires. And it's like damn near impossible to see what's going on in most of the scene with Theo, just like in Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones in the last season of that show. One entire episode is dark. And they were like, well, your TVs are just too dark. Turn the brightness up. It's like, wait a second here.
Yeah.
And it's weird because this show did it too. And like, it just always stuck in my mind since I saw it in Game of Thrones when they were like, well, it's just your TV. That's the problem. It's not our show being too dark. And it is an issue with these kinds of high fantasy shows now. You know, I don't remember there being that big of an issue lighting Helm's Deep.
Right.
And that was all at night.
Yeah. I mean, you had one single source of light, if memory serves, or at least, you know, like it looked like it was all coming from behind the keep.
Right.
And yeah, I didn't need to know. I didn't need to see like, oh, no, actually, there's these huge lights that we have set up here because we thought of this long time ago at Helm's Deep. No.
So sometimes you just have to admit that this is a fucking movie or a TV show and it needs to be lit. Not everybody needs to be, you know, God, who's the Alexander Inarritu, the guy who directed The Revenant. We need to shoot it in natural light. Like, again, It looks better, but I don't think it looks better when you can't really tell what's going on. And that's, again, you know, I don't know. That was a thing in Game of Thrones that I noticed. And here it's just like, man, I hope this show doesn't have a lot of night scenes, because it was kind of hard to tell what was going on. But then we have Arondir show back up, which feels very Deus Ex Elf. And
it totally is.
Right.
I'm about to murder you, and I'm still waiting. And
I heard the noise. I'm dead now.
Thwack.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very convenient. I actually liked all the stuff with Arondir and Adar. I think it's interesting.
Nice. Yeah.
I think that the actor who plays Adar got an interesting look to him.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And he looks almost familiar either both in and out of the makeup. And I can't place him though. I've seen his filmography and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not picturing you in any of these things.
Yeah, I mean, like I had mentioned, he's kind of a Game of Thrones weird kind of hanger on to that show because of the way they treated his character. So my hope is they give him more to do here. He's an interesting villain. I mean, this isn't we haven't had we've kind of had non-orc villains. I mean, we've had like the monsters of the world villains, but we've never had a villain like this before. So it's going to be interesting because it's a sentient corporeal villain that's not an orc. Which
he
not
can
really
actually have
thing.
a conversation with you.
Right. It doesn't require the mouth of Sauron.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But
and interestingly, I was able to engage with this character and kind of get a little bit more of his insight on him. And he didn't talk for like a half an hour like Kang in that Loki finale.
Right. Well, and again, that's the other thing that I appreciate is it wasn't like an exposition dump of the highest order. And that's what I was expecting. I was expecting Adar to just be like, well, let me tell you something. And he just goes into this. He starts twirling his mustache and telling them, you know, well, this is what I plan on doing. And this is how we plan on doing it. It's like, he doesn't tell them anything. No. He's just like, you know, go tell your people, give up, surrender, or we're going to kill them. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And, you leave me wanting more. I want to know more about this guy, please.
Yeah. And I can only imagine we're going to get more of it, if not next week, the week after. Again, they seem to be giving one of the stories a week off, it would seem. So next week, I don't know who. I would assume probably. It seems like the story that is getting time off is always going to be, it's either the Elrond story or the Harfoot story is getting time out. because we've seen Galadriel almost every week, and we've seen Arondir and Bronwyn almost every week. One of them or both of them. So Elrond stuff and the Harfoot stuff is seemingly, I guess, the swappable B plot. It's an interesting way of telling the story. I'm trying to remember if Game of Thrones went full episodes without checking in on anybody. I think they must have. It's weird for this kind of story because, again, I don't associate that with Lord of the Rings. I don't think that the pacing is that off, though, for this first season. I was wondering to myself, like, does this show feel rushed? And again, with some of the Numenor stuff, it does, but it honestly feels like I'm having a hard time understanding what the point of anything in Numenor was, other than to just meet Elendil and Isildur. She's gone from there.
Yeah.
Theoretically, supposedly. So we're being led to believe by the way the episode ends. So I don't know. I'm excited to see where the Galadriel story links up with the Galadriel story. I feel like has to link up with the Arondir story at some point because they're all going to, I don't know. They all are converging on the Southlands. Are they not?
That's what it feels like. Yeah.
Already. Like we're in the first season of this show.
Right.
And the Harfoots are in the Southlands. Arondir and Bronwyn are in the Southlands. And Galadriel and those boats are going to the Southlands. So how is it that everybody's already meeting up in the first season of this show? They're already going to be very close to one another is what I'm getting at.
Is it going to be, okay, this season we're going to concentrate on this. And then over here, we're going to concentrate on this other thing, whether it's taking place at the same time or a little bit later.
That's what I wonder. Because again, like the show I thought was going to have a longer runway for some of this stuff. And it feels like it's just like some of these, like she was in Numenor for 2 episodes and she's already out of there. Like, all right, fine, like, cool. Like, I can't fault the show for wanting to cover a lot of ground because it feels like it has a lot of ground to cover. But I guess I just didn't, again, with a show like this, it's hard to really understand what their timeline is other than 5 seasons. Right. So I don't know. I'm digging the show. You know, everybody keeps saying, you know, is it better than Game of Thrones or is Lord of the Rings better? I think they both scratch different itches. I think this is a show you can watch with your family. This is like more of a, not a family show, but more of a, not saying even kid friendly, but it hews closer to the lore and the Lord of the Rings is not as over the top as Game of Thrones is. I think this show's still a little bit better than Game of Thrones, but I think they both are having the same issue of like not feeling like we're given enough time with any characters enough to get to know them. This show, it's because there's so many. And in that show, it's because they keep time jumping every episode. Like in Game of Thrones, they've gone like 4 years already through 4 episodes. Like they'll come back to the show and it'll be like 6 months later or a year later. It's like, whoa. I can't get my bearings here because you're jumping time in between episodes every time. This show is pinballing around. Really hard even. I mean, to the point about your wife walking out of the room, like the stuff in Numenor, the fact that they come back to it so many times in this episode is just, it's excessive. Like, I don't know. I'm honestly like already sick of the Numenor stuff, and that's going to be terrible to say, but like, it's not interesting. They haven't made it interesting.
Yeah. Now I'm to the point where I'm just like, okay, do I go back and watch this episode again with Andrea? Do I go back a few episodes and say, let's rewatch this whole 4 hours now? I don't know what to do. Or if she's just checked out completely.
Well, I wouldn't blame her for checking out because when the show is putting the focus on the Numenorian characters who are just very poorly one-dimensional, I don't know. It's just weird. Like I wouldn't have expected this show would struggle as hard as it is with its Game of Thrones adjacent stuff that it's doing. Because that's what it feels. The Numenor stuff feels the most like Game of Thrones, but like really poorly written Game of Thrones. And again, I think that's because Lord of the Rings doesn't have that stuff baked into it at the core. Like, I don't know. In Lord of the Rings, at least in the Silmarillion, which I know that this isn't drawing from, you didn't have kings fighting for succession and all that. And that's a huge part of Game of Thrones. I mean, that's the name of the show, Game of Thrones. Lord of the Rings never had that. And so what's weird is they're trying to like sort of inject that into the show. To me, it's just like, this isn't Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. And I might actually agree with the people on the internet for the first time. Some of the stuff in this episode is a little not Lord of the Ringsy, but I think it's primarily because of a time and a place that we exist in now where we can't put the cork in the bottle of Game of Thrones anymore. Right. We can't do that. So I don't know. If you like Game of Thrones, go watch that. If you like Lord of the Rings, go watch that. This is not fucking DC and Marvel. You can like both. One existed long before the other. So, and one is directly influenced by the other, and one is direct kind of response in a subversive way to the other. So you can like both, but I think it is a tad unfortunate that they're both out on TV at the same time, because it's just the amount of comparisons and the amount of bitching feels amplified, because people will be like, well, Game of Thrones did it better. It's like, well, then just go watch that.
All right.
Just go watch that then.
We're not forcing you to watch this.
Nobody is. Bezos isn't forcing you yet.
Wait till that chip gets activated, though.
Like in Clockwork Orange, you're sitting there in Lord of the Rings and dripping it into your eyes. Help me.
You're going to watch.
I don't want to see the elves. I don't want to see the dwarfs. I don't want to see any of it. I want to see more dwarf singing to the rocks and resonating with the rocks so much that the rocks are like vibrating.
I really like that.
Again, everything with the dwarfs is so far for me. The dwarfs have been the best part of this show. The dwarfs and then the orcs are a close second.
Right. When you're getting stuff with the dwarves that you got a little bit more from The Hobbit and just like what dwarf culture is like.
Right.
And you didn't get, I'm talking about The Hobbit, the book, and you didn't really get that in The Hobbit, the movie. It was just like I said, last week or the week before, it was just like, I don't know, 7, 12 dudes or whatever that just all had funny names. And there was very little that stood out. But, I felt like I knew the dwarves and really felt for the dwarves. So then when, Gimli shows up, it's just like, oh, cool, a dwarf character. That's great. I was more excited for a dwarf than for the elves.
Well, and I'm with you. I mean, I think I said it probably in the first or second episode that we did the same thing. Like, dwarves have been the underutilized characters in the adaptations of The Lord of the Rings, not the books, the adaptations. And yeah, Gimli's a great character, but he's a B character in those movies. I mean, he's an A character in the second movie, but in the first movie and the third movie, he's kind of a B character. But here in the show, like, Doran is a lead. He is one of the leads of our show. And yeah, getting to see Khazad-dûm before the Balrogs show up, but knowing that the Balrogs are going to show up, which is thoroughly depressing in a really terrible way. Mm-hmm. But I mean, look, all these characters for the most part that you've seen that aren't elves are going to be dead, are long dead by the time of the Fellowship. So it's like, again, it almost doesn't matter that they die because they're dead anyways by the time you get to Fellowship. So no, I'm everything with the dwarfs is really the best part of the show. And if people have a problem with the dwarf part of the show, then I don't know how you can find any enjoyment with the show. Because as far as I'm concerned, the dwarfs and the Elrond's interaction with Doran and Disa are just, whoever's writing that stuff gets the source material.
Yeah.
Put that person on everything else. And that's got to be the way they're writing the show, right? Is like certain teams are tackling certain story beats or something, because it's clear it's not just one team writing the show. It might not even be one team writing these episodes. There are, one or two people listed on the episodes, but I can't help but wonder that the core writing room is probably getting in notes on everything, along with one Jeff Bezos. So I don't know. I feel like hopefully by the end of the season, we'll have seen a turnaround on the Numenor storyline. But yeah, everything else is really compelling, but they're just giving a lot of time to that stuff with Galadriel. And I hope, like you said, now that we've left, ostensibly we're leaving Numenor, we're moving on to the Southlands, back to Middle Earth, maybe it'll start picking up. We'll get to see her doing anything other than being locked in a cell for 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Like, you showed us how cool of a character she could be. Yeah, is she a little different than the character in the movies? Sure. But you know what? It's thousands of years later, whatever. But I don't want to see her locked up anymore, because you didn't even let us see much of anything with her to begin with. And then to just be like, well, now she's locked up in Numenor. It's like, God damn it, show. Like, come on.
Give us something.
Yeah, for real. For real. Give us something, because as much as I care about the Palantir, oh my God, it's okay. Yeah. You're showing us the same thing twice now in one episode.
Uh-huh.
Because I would say the opening of the episode's pretty successful. It's showing us something that, again, we've never seen. We've only ever heard about. But then, of course, it's a dream. Because, of course, it is. Because, again, this is the fourth episode of the show. So it's just like so strange to me. I don't know. I don't know. I am enjoying the show, but I am starting to wonder if there are parts of the show that are just never going to excel in ways that other parts of the show do, which it would make perfect sense. Game of Thrones had the same problem. These kinds of shows have that problem where you've got 8 or 9 different storylines. Not all of them are going to be winners.
Yeah. Yeah. With the opening, it has to be so annoying to watch television or movies with me, because with the opening, I was just like, and wake up, and then cut. She woke up. I was like, okay.
But I mean, again, like it smacks of laziness. Some of the stuff is lazy. Like that is just, like I was thinking to myself the same thing. I was like, they're not destroying Numenor this early on in the show. Like, no, it's a dream.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then they have to reinforce how it's a dream in the construct of the world, because it's not really a dream. It's the Palantir.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a little weak, but it's all right. You know what I'm looking forward to? I'm looking forward to the fan editors to take this. But you know what they're going to want to do immediately is they're going to want to take Rings of Power, and they're going to, too early, they're going to try to like append it to The Hobbit and to Lord of the Rings. And it's just like, don't do that. Don't do that. Just if you want to rearrange the storytelling, if you want to make it, a little tighter and stuff, like take your 8 hours and shrink it down to like, I don't know, 6. I'm sure you could probably do that and just put some stuff in different places. That's fine. Go for it. I'm cool with that, and taking away this little, dream sequence, that seems like a good thing that you could chop. But also at the same time, don't take it and be like, okay, we're slavishly going to reorder everything in the order of the appendices. And oh my God, please, just a word of warning, fan editors, don't go nuts like that.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, there are going to undoubtedly be, by the end of the season, there's going to be 1 or 2 storylines that are not worth having anybody revisit. I mean, again, we've talked about before the idea with this show that the show is, they know how long they've got, they know how many episodes they have, they know where the story is going. But by the end of it, there's going to be 1 or 2 stories that were like, this just wasn't that interesting.
Yeah.
And that is what fan editors are for. Not every fan edit needs to be the Spice Diver Dune fan edit, where he goes and rotoscopes in blue eyes. I mean, there doesn't need to be, like you said, that level of commitment, but somebody will undoubtedly do something with this once this show is over. But that's fine, right?
Do you know what they're going to do?
Oh God.
I've already seen stills where people have started to do this with AI. I've seen stills where they've taken little black Ariel and redone her as a white girl with red hair. And I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. What kind of racist piece of shit do you have to be to do that? And there's going to be those same a-holes are going to be turning elves and dwarves and everybody else white. And it's like, oh my God, really? So just beware of those already. So talk about computer wizardry.
The Breitbart
go
edit.
There. Yes, exactly.
The Lord, the JRRRR right wing edition. The JRR right wing edition. Yeah.
Special non-woke edition.
Yeah. The Ron DeSantis cut. Hey, look, again, it's like it's so fucking sickening anymore that this is a constant. But guess what? I don't personally know anybody who gives a shit about the color of anybody's fucking skin in any of this shit. Period.
No.
Anymore. And you know what? I don't know if you do either.
Oh, I mean, personally, no. Personally, I have no one that gives a shit. There can be any ethnicity on screen and they're not going to care. So yeah, I'm glad that those are the people I know and I don't know the other ones.
I don't know if those other people exist outside of the internet is more what I'm getting at.
I don't even know if they exist like in real life or if they're just like bots.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if they're real or if they're just like someone on the internet going and being like, I'm going to stir the shit up, which, like, you know what? Like, kudos to you for being that guy, for just, I'm going to stir the shit up. But like, there are plenty of ways that you could do that and be constructive. Like, you don't have to be like, Black Ariel. Ugh. Like,
Yeah.
how about broken judicial system? Ugh. Or not giving kids free meals at school and making their fucking parents who can barely afford to food on the table at home. Maybe do something about that. Like, it just feels like one hand's over here doing something and everybody else is focusing on the Lord of the Rings and the Black Elves. Like, there's a vested, I'm not saying there's a vested interest in keeping our attention on stupider things, but if we're focusing on the color of Ariel's skin, we're not focusing on kids getting food at schools or people who are struggling with addiction or mental illness or any of the big issues. So like you said, just to keep in perspective, you Lord of the Rings fans, not that I would consider you Lord of the Rings fans, because if you're a real Lord of the Rings fan, you would shut the fuck up about it. If you don't like the lore, that's fine. I actually understand being upset about the lore, but this is also a fucking adaptation and you're not adapting it. And you never will, because your ideas are bad and no one wants to listen to you. And maybe these people's ideas aren't any better, but they're the people whose ideas they're going with. And if they're not good, then we can talk about how not good they are. But let their ideas be bad first before you run them out of town on a fucking railroad. Because that's the other thing. It's like the show was not even out and people were angry.
Oh, yeah.
And now the show's out and it's like, well, we're still angry. And it's like, oh, shocking. Like, I'm surprised as anybody else. So, yeah, you know what? That's why I'm like, I don't want to say like I'm done with this show or this show is, whatever, because I don't want to be lumped in with the rest of these totally fictitious people that don't exist. But people, get a life, as William Shatner once said on that SNL skit. Get a fucking life. This show is, even at this show's middle of the roadsiest, which is kind of this episode, as far as I'm concerned, it's still decent. Still looks nice.
Yeah.
The money that they're spending to make it look nice is still on screen. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Those dwarf masks are cool. The dwarf masks that open like this, that's great.
That's pretty cool.
I'm an idiot podcaster amused by stupid things.
Yeah.
Well put, Mike. Yep. Well put.
Yeah.
Well put.
Not much more I can add to that, Chris.
Not much more I have to say, really. Other than what are we talking about on the next episode? TBA titled episode number 5?
Yes, 1.5. That's what we're talking about. So yeah, until we get to see episode 1.5, we are Mike and Chris. So Chris, what is happening with you, sir?
If you want to find out about this idiot podcaster's more terrible opinions about, racial equality and giving a shit about one another, see Stachiw.com, CSTACHIW.com. That's my link tree. Go there for all the things that I work on. There are a lot of them, and there are a lot of them. What about you, Mike? Where can people find you?
You can always find me over at the Projection Booth Podcast, which is available at projectionboothpodcast.com, oddly enough. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening. If you've given us a review and rating over on iTunes, I haven't read it yet. I'm very curious if anybody's going to do that, but that might be kind of cool.
Wokesters! They're wokesters!
Exactly. That's exactly what we're going to
Looks like wokesters are back on the menu, boys. God.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror. We'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.